This magnet right here is 13 cents, and it's what I use for the majority of my woodworking projects. And this magnet is $2.17. As you can see, it's a little bit bigger, but is it actually worth that much more money? Today we're going to be doing two very simple projects, putting these in and seeing if they really hold anything around the shop. We're actually going to be using almost $25 worth of these in a single project. Let's see if it's worth it. We are going to be using this monstrosity right here to test all of our magnets. We're going to be putting it down on the CNC machine and cutting out two very simple projects so that we can hold everything. In reality, you don't really need all of this stuff, but I didn't have material that would hold those 1-inch thick magnets, so I glued a piece to the top right here, and then we're just going to be using this to cut out both pieces. Now, the tool pathing tutorial is actually a little bit of a mess on this one, so if you are interested and you're a CNC with me member, I go through how I actually tool pathed all this for this specific chunk of wood. Our top layer is ash and our bottom layer is cedar, but the really nice part is the front of these are not going to be pierced at all, which is going to be the bottom of our material. We're just going to be putting it down with some double-sided tape, and we're only using one bit for this project, our downtown Jenny, which is one of the 3 bits that you need to CNC with me. We're going to be cutting out 2 versions of this to fit all of our different magnets, and then we're going to be doing some testing outside to see if it actually really holds anything, and most importantly, are the bigger magnets actually worth the cost? It is time for this week's mystery file, which means that Mitz has sent over some mystery G-code. I've loaded it into the controller. I'm about to press go and see what happens. We're only going to be using 1 bit for this project today, which means that we're using the downtown Jenny. The reason I say that which means is because normally we're going to be using the downtown Jenny to cut stuff out. So I can only assume that we're going to cut something out. I don't know. Let's see what Mitz has in store for us. I'm 90% sure this is like a tiny coat rack, which it turned out awesome. It definitely fits. I love it when I have to use like a mallet to hit something in and just friction fits so well. If it's from Mitz, it fits. The thing is, all of a sudden there were just 2 very purposed holes put in here. I have no idea. Mitz, you're gonna have to comment below this YouTube video and write some explanation for this. Thanks, Mitz. Well, boy, did it take a little while to get to this. So when I was first running things, I noticed that the bit was just too far up in the collet. I was not going to be able to fully pierce the material. So I went ahead, stopped everything, lowered the bit down a little bit in the collet, and then started going. Then I noticed that the material was shifting around a little bit, too much for my liking. So I went ahead and put in 2 screws. And then everything cut out, the way that it needed to. Of course, with that downcut bit, it was just packing in sawdust, and if anybody's ever cut cedar, it's just turning it into a powder as it's packing it down. So ended up using a little like computer spray can and got all that stuff out. And then getting the magnets in, I guess I had done my measurements wrong, but I really started chipping things up and it was not looking good. But I went ahead and just kind of flipped things around as far as my design is concerned and left the magnets where they're just getting knocked in flush on the quote-unquote back of the piece, which is now the front. So after all that was done, I had 2 of these very expensive magnets pushed down too far. Everything is cracked up, but it's still in one piece. Then I went ahead and just put it in a screw hole location and then screwed them right here to this post. And before we get into this, I know that this is not the best way to do this. I made this very simple on purpose because this is the introduction to one of our Make It Better challenges. So if you're a CNC With Me member, you've got 30 days to quote unquote make this better. The only really rules to it is it has to be a piece of wood with some type of magnets in it, and it has to hold tools somehow. That can be small tools, big tools, any type of thing. But I really wanted to walk through, are these really expensive magnets that much more worth it? Because this is close to $25 worth of magnets in here. And spoiler alert, I personally do not think it is worth it. Just looking at it and going through this process, it is considerably heavier than this one. But this little guy over here is the magnets that I normally use in the majority of my projects. And the file that you'll get is right here. Oh gosh, that is getting very sunny. Well, that's kind of better. The file is specifically for this one, and it's meant for these magnets to go in there and friction fit instead of having to deal with a ton of CA glue and activator and stuff. I know that process can be really annoying, but if you just go through and you take a metal object and attach one magnet to it, then take a mallet and pound it down in there, depending on the depth that you want to get to, you could just as easily take a scrap piece of wood and go ahead and push it all the way down to the very end of this, depending on the thickness of the material that you're using. I will say that using a thicker material and pushing this out against the wall as much as possible is going to be really great when having tools and being able to grab them, depending on the type of tool that you are using. The small one, obviously, you can just put paintbrushes, you know, paint can openers, any type of like screwdrivers and stuff. But this bigger one, will it actually hold better stuff? So right here we've got our big hammer, and I'm going to put it up against this small one. You can feel it kind of trying, but it's definitely not doing it. And then we've got this bigger one. Eh? No. Spray paint can. And spray paint can. No. You can see that it wants to, but not $25 worth. Obviously, the bigger magnets that you use, it's going to more readily grab smaller things, but not worth the amount of money that you're going to be spending on it. I'll have both sets of these magnets linked down below, because maybe there are some use cases that you would want to use these bigger ones, but sheesh, they're just so expensive. And also in the comments down below, if you have somewhere where you're sourcing magnets that is considerably cheaper than what Amazon has available, because I do think that $2 a piece for each one of these is insanely high. If you source magnets from somewhere, let me know down in the comments down below. Just don't put a link, because YouTube's automatically going to delete that. Try and have a workaround for that so that we can all share with each other and figure out better ways to do things, because I do know that just because Amazon has things readily available, it definitely does not mean that they're the cheapest ones around. This is a very simple project, and the last project of Maker Month is also going to be somewhat of a magnetic project as well. And if you're brand new to the channel, Maker Month is when we are posting a brand new CNC related project every single Friday that specifically is for the wood shop. I post every single Friday on this channel CNC projects, but just this month we are doing wood shop related projects. And I think that the magnetic puck holder is a really great one for some specific things. Obviously, it can work. Is it worth the money? So you just go to Harbor Freight and get one of those little magnetic strip things that cost like $4? Maybe so. Regardless, I hope to see y'all next Friday. Bye. Well, of course I'm going to try and get all the magnets out of this. It's 25 bucks.